outside of a Philadelphia abortion clinic is facing federal charges for allegedly assaulting a clinic escort. Pro-lifer Mark Hawk is a Catholic father of 7. His family says that he was arrested Friday by more than 24 FBI agents who came to the door with their guns drawn. A senior FBI source told Fox News that the guns were not drawn and only around 15 to 20 agents were at the home. If convicted, Hawk faces up to 11 years in prison. We go now to Amber.
Okay, so you have this gentleman who is facing up to 11 years in federal prison, all because he defended himself. This is the other part that people don't know and not hearing much about, against a belligerent person in their, I believe, 70s. And the gentleman who is Catholic, he has a men's group that he leads, and he's always evangelizing, and he's going around praying around these pro-abortion facilities. And so he's praying at these pro-abortion facilities, and he's trying to, I guess, evangelize and talk to some people about Christ while he's there. But all of a sudden, this day he had brought one of his children, and I think it was one of his older sons. And the person who was an activist for abortion or pro-choice got up in his face, and he just tried to warn him and tell him, hey, back off, etc. But he had his son with him, and so it was more so for the safety of his son. So what happens is this guy keeps going on, keeps trying to agitate him and provoke him, and then all of a sudden he shoves the man back because he was getting too close up in his space. And let me tell you, it don't matter saved or not saved, you have a right to protect yourself, defend yourself, especially if people get up in your face and threatening you. And all he did was shove the man, and because the man so-called fell, and probably I'm assuming he even fake fell, and then maybe he did really fall, but that doesn't matter. The fact is that he fell, and then all of a sudden they tried to take this to court. They did in a lower tier court system. This was thrown out of court because they knew that the man was defending himself. They was looking at the situation. And this isn't the first, if even the last time, that you'll ever see these people. They get so radicalized over their agenda or their motives on why they support what they do. And in this case, because they were pro-abortion. I mean, I've seen some people, when it comes to some of these LGBTQ parades and all these other things that they have, or protesting in favor of abortion and whatever have you, get nasty and ugly and violent and confrontational and belligerent and disgusting. And I mean, I've seen video after video after video after video that the lot of your news organizations that are not pro-life, that are not pro-choice, that are not pro-God will not show you. Will not. They will not talk about that, because then they'll eyes will be open to what's really going on. And so this man defended himself, but lo and behold, the Stasi group there at the Joe Biden administration already set in place coming in that they were going to start targeting people who were of faith, who Christian, targeting people who were pro-life, targeting people who are value and appreciate and stand for the Constitution, target people who love things that are wholesome. And so because this was not sentenced, this man did not get sentenced, then lo and behold, Merrick Garland of the DOJ, under the orders of his hierarchy, steps in, and he orders the FBI to arrest this gentleman. And so they come in with 20 or more officers in like SWAT team gear, guns blazing, and pointed at basically his whole family, even the smallest kids, scaring the mess out of them, acting like this man was some big drug dealer or cartel member or what have you. And, you know, this isn't the first time that this has happened. And these people are unhinged, and more people are becoming aware of it. But the reason why you have a lot of people like CNNs and the MSNBCs and these other left-wing, pro-communist, pro-anti-freedom channels and news organizations won't talk about that, or they'll reverse the story to slander the person who was arrested in this case, is because they are in league and in line with all of this mess. They're in line and they are in league with the administration. So, people are getting fed up, and I'm looking at other people making comments, and they're saying, they feel like they live in a country now where their administration doesn't even care about them, where their government doesn't even care about protecting them, because you see the DOJ and the FBI are weaponized against their political enemies because of orders from on high, from the Bidens, from whoever Biden takes orders from, which I can say, but I won't say, because that's a little too much for you, and that's kind of off subject right now. But they're taking orders from above to go after political enemies. And so when they are going after political enemies, this is what you have. Never mind, though, they didn't go after James Revenge and all of the pro-life centers that are for people keeping their baby, who James Revenge and all these other people terrorize. Oh, did you hear about that on CNN? Did you hear about that on MSNBC? Did you hear about that on some of these other, the literature or magazines that you read? No, I don't think you did. But they hide and they conceal all of that stuff, and all the other hundreds of stories. They don't talk about that. Oh no, we hush. We keep that under wraps. And we don't talk about the criminality at the DOJ and the FBI and all these other organizations. And this is why you have been having whistleblowers come out and speak about what's going on, and some that are not afraid. But we need this to be regulated with a bigger longhorn, this to be given attention to where the cries ring all the way to the heavens. We need such an outrage and an outcry. And you have people now that are calling for Merrick Garland's impeachment. But I would call right here for his arrest. And every compliant officer, FBI, DOJ, whoever that was involved in this and any other abuses of power that is criminal, be not only detained, but arrested and lose their jobs and the whole nine, and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And people who are saying they don't feel like they're safe, they feel like, hey, you know what? We're feeling like we have to take matters in our own hands and under the Constitution exercise the full effect of the Second Amendment. Which this is why people have the Second Amendment, so that they can exercise it at the right time to the full extent of which it was given. Though we realize we do not war against flesh and blood. This is a spiritual issue. And this is why persecution is coming, and even in a greater form, to the body of Christ. No, we don't just take up arms against the government for no apparent reason, but at the same time, we are not to allow the government to just push us over and to incorrectly and wrongfully imprison us and arrest us. And when I think more people rise up vocally, peacefully, then we can get the message across. But then you have some stubborn organizations, governments, etc., whatever have you, that still don't get the message in the picture, and they don't care. And so this is why they are right. This is why they don't care. They feel like just because they are seated in positions of power, they can abuse power. They can abuse the law because they feel like they are the law, and they feel like, well, we're never going to get caught. This is why, you have Hunter Biden out there with these gun issues and charges and all cracks and cocaines and all these other illegal scandals and deals overseas with enemies or frenemies of Biden, that they'll never prosecute them on, but they're trying to find crimes on President Trump because they don't want him to run against them. They're trying to, do all these things. This is why you have Biden in his heart and soul of the nation calling everyone who supports pro-life or who's a Christian or who loves freedom and faith and family and who's against anything that's unbiblical, lump them all in one group and call them Trump supporters and say that, these are the enemies of the nation, which really the domestic enemies and domestic terrorists are the ones acting like it. The Stasi, the Nazis, the new Nazi party, this is the same thing Hitler did when he was coming against the Jews, and he demonized them. He used the media to demonize them and come against them. And had the brown shirts and all of this, the same plays from the communists, and then the revised 1960 Communist Manifesto, making evil look good. And you can read that if you check that out, the Communist Manifesto from the 60s, I believe. And so, yeah, they say, which is true, those who don't believe, who don't learn from their history, will end up repeating it or falling for it all over again. But what about the situations when they try to erase history because they don't want you to know? See? And that's why they've been changing some of our books and our learning books and the educational books and the classes and the school systems, because they don't want you to know the truth about a lot of this dark history. But, there is a time where it's going to come. People are going to get fed up. And when you push them and push them and poke them in the eye and push them and throw fire over their head and push them again, it's going to be just like Sri Lanka. When you took all their resources, when you've drained them of everything, their gas, their food, when you're trying to do all these things that are illegal, you're going to see thousands and thousands descend upon the capital. And I'm not pushing for nothing. I'm just saying this is a warning to all of you crooked FBI and DOJ. This is a warning to the Biden administration and Merrick Garland. This is a warning. When you push and corner the bear, you will get devoured. And I'm just saying that's not the way we want to go. But again, we have to be praying, because though we live in the flesh, we don't war after the flesh. But the reality of it is, as Pastor James Mattis said, the reality of it is that when you play with fire, you're going to get burned. And how long is it going to be before people had enough of this and they just get sick and tired and fed up? And this is why you're going to have people that, you're lying on them, you're demonizing them, and you're calling them domestic terrorists when they are not. But it's the ones in office. It's the ones making these policies, destroying this country, selling us out on our oil, selling us out on coal, destroying our food system, that are the enemies and domestic terrorists, the ones that want to arrest you if you dare disagree, if you dare have a different opinion. And this is why this currency coming on board that they're trying to implement on the 13th of December, if you disagree, if you see differently from your government, if you have your own opinion that doesn't line up and is in league with them, we can cut off your currency just like that on that executive order, I think 14026 or something like that. Look at my, just scroll down and you'll see it in my deal. But I'm going to show you this real quick and I'm going to get out of here. But the main thing is that we got to be praying, pray. Yes, persecution is here, not coming, it's here. But God tells us how to deal with it. And, we got to stick together and we have to be wise about what's going on these days. And we need to let our voices be heard, because the main thing about this is that they're trying to intimidate you from having a voice. They're trying to, and not only that, there's others who are arrested right now for protesting at a at an abortion clinic, just protesting peacefully, having a voice, having a right to protest. The Biden administration hates that because they're communists and they're against that. And this is what communists do. Why, on the other hand, they sit out and try to look, noble and gentle and kind and cool. But I'm going to end the video with this right here.
Arrest of a pro-life Catholic father at his house in front of his family, that's now raising questions over whether the Department of Justice used an unnecessary show of potentially deadly force and why they did it. Mark Hook is set to be arraigned just about an hour from now. He is a husband, he's a father of 7 children, and he's also the president of a Catholic men's ministry. The charges stem from an incident this time last year. A 72-year-old patient escort volunteering outside of the Philadelphia Planned Parenthood accused Hook of shoving him to the ground. Hook said he was defending his 12-year-old son from harassment, and the DOJ indicted Hook under the FACE Act, which makes it a federal crime to forcibly interfere with someone seeking or providing reproductive health care. And on Friday, the FBI descended on his home to arrest him. Get this. The FBI admits that up to 20 agents came to his door with guns drawn. Hook's wife, Ryan Marie, called the use of force traumatic and said that the children were terrified, telling Fox News they said they were going to break in if he didn't open it, and they had about 5 guns pointed at my husband, myself, and basically at my kids. The FBI is calling the claims inaccurate. Emily, this is extraordinary. I saw this Saturday morning. I couldn't believe. I said there has to be more to the story. As it turns out, the more to the story was the fact that the local DA decided not to bring the charges, that the FBI then raids his home with, admittedly, they say 15 to 20 agents, and they say, oh, well, it's inaccurate. Our guns weren't pointed at them. The point is, you're going after a pro-life activist, not the guy who's raiding a McDonald's with an axe, not the guy who's mowing down an 18-year-old who he himself called a Republican extremist. You know, I get that there's federal and state laws at play here, but the point is, you're going after a pro-life advocate for shoving someone, which apparently caused a Band-Aid and nothing more than that.
That's right. How are Americans supposed to accept this? That this is how the FBI is utilized, and this is how the FACE Act is utilized. Unfortunately, Kaylee, I've seen this a lot in my career, which is the absolute overshow of force in situations like this. It's totally unnecessary. And the FBI says, well, it's according to our standards and practices, right? This is pursuant to an arrest warrant, but it doesn't have to be that way. I've seen it so many times, 6 in the morning for a non-violent charge, a white-collar crime charge, for example, guns drawn, 50 agents, laboratories, etc. It's unfortunately, in my opinion, unconscionable because it keeps happening. And yet the American people have to feel unsafe as axe-wielding men ride the subway with them and beat 80-year-old women. It's absolutely unconscionable. Let's go back to this for a second. Here's what else is unconscionable. Since the leak of the SCOTUS opinion on May 3rd, we've had, one group reports, over 104 instances of extremist violence against pregnancy resource centers and pro-life activists. Just last week, we reported an 83-year-old woman was shot because she was engaging in pro-life activism. And yet, how many instances have we seen of the FACE Act being used to prosecute against them? Or just any charge?
I don't think there was a single arrest in any of those pro-life centers that were targeted. Not a single arrest that I know of.
That's right. And the Attorney General refuses to even acknowledge it. So Senator Hawley calls it an epidemic of violence against pro-life advocates. And he is calling on the Attorney General to testify in front of Congress. He says answer for those lack of charges, answer for the selective use of the FACE Act.
And as she also said in there, the clear political weaponization of the DOJ and the FBI. And I had to cut it off right there for copyright purposes. So weaponizing the FBI and the DOJ against its political enemies. Meanwhile, you let people on the other side of the spectrum who's in line with you to do evil deeds just because one side is for pro-abortion or against the Bible and what have you. I mean, it's just, it's a two-tier justice system. And they talk so noble and say, well, when it comes to criminality and serving in the law, justice is blind and we must treat and handle everything correctly and fairly, but then they don't live by it. And so, you know, hell is hot. And so I would say to you, Merrick Garland, Biden, and all of you agents, you better repent, get right with God, because one day you're going to stand before him and you're going to cry out for all eternity for what you did. That's all I got to say. And to the believers, continue to pray, and don't let them scare you, intimidate you. Those who stand for freedom, don't let them intimidate you. Ecclesiastes, I believe chapter 9 says, there is a time, or 3, I believe, Ecclesiastes 3 says, there is a time and a moment for all things. So there is going to be a time where, when a point to where the government gets so far out of control and out of hand, where they are just illegally rounding up people, when nothing else is being done, people will have to take their some type of action to get a control over the tyranny in the government. And this is why you have the Second Amendment. Again, not for violence sake, but for regulation's sake, I mean, this is why you had that in place again because of why examples: the Hitlers, the Stalins, the Maos, who killed millions upon millions and upon millions of people, imprisoned people in these camps. And yes, they have them here. A lot of people say no, they don't have the camp. Yes, they have camps here. You just don't know about it. But not going to be another video for another day. But you know, this is where we're at. You just have to face that reality. But the main thing is to pray, to hold fast, and God is greater than government. It's not about bowing down to government. If government's not doing what they're supposed to do, if they're not living according to the law, they're illegitimate. All bets are off. So don't even bring the scriptures on that, because all bets are off. If they're not living accordingly, if they're not acting biblically, then all bets are off, and they are an illegitimate government. And this is why it's we the people. This is a country for the people, by the people. And so, but be praying. God bless you guys. Amen.